Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us. We are super excited to kick off today and have this conversation. I am Beck Clark. I'm the onboarding manager here at Style Arcade. We are very grateful to have Alyssa Thomas here with us. She's the head of e-commerce at Age and Age Athletica. Thank you, Alyssa.
Thanks, Beck. I'm excited to be here. What a great topic.
Very, very excited. And we have Jenna Cohen from Refundid. She is the general manager. Thanks for being here, Jenna.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this conversation.
And last but not least, my colleague from Style Arcade, Brogan Hembro, who heads up brand and community over in New York City. Hey, Brogan.
Thanks, Beck. Thanks for having me.
So first up, thank you to our all of you guys, I guess, for answering this question. We put the question out there: what is the number one reason your shoppers ask for returns and refunds? I think this chart and the split of answers pretty accurately depicts industry averages and trends at the moment. Wrong size and fit coming in at 70%. We'll certainly deep dive into some of these topics today with our panelists, and particularly the over-ordered and bracketing topic, being that it's a relatively new consumer trend that's starting to take over. So we'll certainly deep dive into those. Quickly, we wanted to, in case you haven't seen this in circulation, we've got the State of Retail Returns ebook. This was developed by Style Arcade and Refundid. Please feel free to download via the QR code there on your screen. The ebook really it covers industry benchmarks and how your brand actually stacks up against those. There's tools and strategies around your returns experiences and ensuring that this increases retention, and a lot of focus on the impact of smart merchandising and advanced data in terms of actually analysing your returns. So please feel free to download. Some of these key call outs, again, we'll kind of deep dive on, particularly the 30% of online shoppers actively seek ways to overspend and return. So this notion of bracketing, which is trending. So jumping straight into it. So current state of returns, we are starting to see retailers resetting customer expectations when it comes to returns. So they're, things like offering speed, convenience, more options or expanding return options rather than just, your kind of default free returns. So we're seeing a bit of a shift there. So I guess this first question I'd love to put to Alyssa, and it'd be interesting to hear, what you've witnessed in terms of those shifting customer expectations for the Age brand, and any challenges that have then followed after that.
Yeah, I think that stat on the previous slide was quite remarkable, that 30% of customers are actively overbuying. I think that's a problem in itself, and absolutely something I'd say we as a brand are experiencing. I would say off the back of COVID, it really impacted customer expectations. They want their order fast. I think Amazon as well was a big player in regards to kind of creating these customer expectations, and customers they just don't want to wait to receive their order, to maybe it'll fit, maybe it won't, maybe they'll have to exchange it or go into store, or the process is long and it's not necessarily easy with some brands. So where we're really seeing bracket buying happening is those customers who may be unsure of their size. They're buying two sizes so they can on the spot try it on in the comfort of their home and return, I suppose, the size that's not quite right for them. One thing that we're also really seeing is we are a brand with a higher price point, so we really are feeling the knock-on effect, I suppose, of the interest rate hikes, what's happening from an economic perspective, and it is impacting us. So the whole experience for us and for the customer needs to be perfect. So if there's any issue with the size, if there's any issue with our policies or the fit or anything in regards to it, the customer is likely going to return it based on the pressure that I would say we're all experiencing with the interest rate. So yeah, we are seeing an increase in returns. It is inevitable, and it's just about making, I suppose, the whole aspect and the whole process of returning an item smooth and frictionless, because ultimately that drives the customer to come back and overall drives customer loyalty.
Yeah, it's super interesting. It's good to, I guess, hear that Age is embracing, these new trends and leaning into it. And have you found, in terms of your international customers and their bracketing or their buying behaviours, is there a bit of a shift there that you're starting to see as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've got a really strong wholesale market internationally, but of course, there's going to be so many customers who also don't know the brand, and where we're seeing bracket buying in particular is in the US. So we've got a big market there for our international site. And I think it's really about kind of shifting the mindset as well in regards to that bracket buying. It's not necessarily a bad thing from an international customer. I think it's really about kind of acquiring the customer, getting them introduced to the brand. And I suppose yes, it is cost. It is more of a cost in regards to getting it internationally, but I think those customers are also probably worth more to the business because there's such a wider group of customers you can target internationally. So what we've really been working on is where customers are bracket buying, what they're bracket buying on. Is it dresses? What category is it? One thing that we found was with our sizing on our international site, we had AU sizing, and of course, AU sizing is numbered just like the US, but there is quite a different scale in regards to what our sizing means compared to theirs. So really quick win for us was exposing a size conversion on our international site for all products as customers were buying an AU 8 thinking it was a US 8, and that of course was really impacting our returns and not only costing the customer more money, it was costing us more money having the wrong product or the wrong sizes out of the business, and overall it was just not a great customer experience.
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely sounds like, there are those challenges, but also equally opportunities. And it sounds like you're sort of tackling those in terms of your international audience. I'll jump over to Brogan and your experience, in terms of bracketing, and have you seen, particularly over in the US, any retailers and what they're doing, and are they embracing it? Any sort of key takeouts?
The rise of bracketing. Look, there's two types of bracketing. There's the size bracketing, where Alyssa mentioned, where a customer will buy multiple sizes of the one item and then return what doesn't work. And then there's style bracketing, where they're essentially buying multiple items or a whole wardrobe and then returning the items that they don't want. Sizing is a little easier to manage. On top of Alyssa's examples, which I think are fantastic, I really like Zara, which we detailed in the report you just had up before, where if a customer will add 2 sizes of the one style to cart, a little pop-up will appear which redirects them to the style guide, or the size guide, sorry. But bracketing for styles is a little harder, and I think the business model of Revolve is really interesting. Revolve being an online retailer here in the States, where they actually encourage bracketing and encourage customers to see their home as the fitting room. They do have a return rate of 50 to 60% to reflect this, but they see it as a very real cost of doing business and have baked that into their business model because their customers have been very forward with them and have told them that's how we like to shop with you. So I think over the past couple of years, there's definitely been a push for brands to encourage customers into exchanging items, but I think the reality is that 70% of customers are still opting for refunds, and bracketing is definitely not slowing down. So it's whether brands want to try and combat it or they actually embrace it and work it into their strategy moving forward.
Thanks, Brogan. Yeah, I think it's a good call out that, returns, it's really just that unnecessary or the necessary evil, and it's a cost of doing business. Jennifer, from your perspective and from, I guess, a platform perspective, seeing that returns are that necessary evil, how are retailers across the board adapting to this?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting stat from Brogan around that 70%, because what we're really seeing is retailers are embracing this whole returns and refunds space. So for us, the conversation has really shifted with retailers, where we're seeing so many more businesses invest time and resources into return projects, evaluating what is best for their business in terms of return options. How do they get creative with those different policies in order to suit different customers, potentially also in different regions? So a lot of conversation around bracketing. How do we support Australian businesses who are expanding into the US and help shift the focus more to this is inevitable and this is so many of my customers. So how do we actually take those customers and give them an experience that makes them want to come back and turn that refund, I guess, into a repurchase and a continued conversation with the brand? So there was an AusPost report that was just released that actually stated nearly 76% of customers would look at a return policy before that decision-making process of making that purchase. So I think that just supports that stat in terms of really trying to look as an industry, and especially in our conversations and with our retailers, how do we help provide a seamless and frictionless returns experience to help drive that loyalty with those customers? Supporting things like profitability, that's obviously, reducing costs and creating efficiencies is a huge focus as well. So not necessarily that, once thought of has to be free returns is the only type of great return policy, but it's also around ease and seamlessness, and how do you help reduce costs internally in your business to make sure that your returns are still operating to deliver value across the business.
Yeah, I think thanks, Joanna. Super insightful. And if we, I guess, stick to your theme of making returns really easy for customers, how do we then continue to look at how, reducing our returns frequency? So, I think you sort of mentioned it. An obvious one is clear communication, whether that's on site and looking at your return policies throughout the whole customer journey. It'd be interesting to hear, I guess, from Alyssa, what are the tools and strategies that you've found to be the most impactful when aiming to reduce your returns frequency?
Yeah, I think the communication piece is huge. One of the things we found was returns was actually a top search term on our site. So that indicated to us that it wasn't that easy for the customer to find. So I was really starting there, and it sounds pretty basic and pretty obvious, but that's exactly where we started, and really refining that process for that customer on site. Also, we were having feedback from our customers that, like I touched on, that everyone's feeling the pinch. People aren't spending as much as they were, and whilst customers were utilizing our buy now, pay later options, they also wanted options on the back end of the purchase. So not just when they're upfront making the purchase, but the post-purchase experience. And customers were reaching out, they were wanting refunded. And so we implemented that early Feb. So we've been able to kind of capture that process there on the back end, and already really seeing some great results off the back of it. But I suppose where we've really utilized the I guess return information is we've got so much data, and it's an overwhelming amount of data coming through. Of course, we've got multiple platforms, multiple systems telling us all different things. And I suppose where we were like, where do we start? What do we do? So we've got the tools already in play. We've been working with Style Arcade for years now. And what's really great about Style Arcade is it actually lays out all the data in a really visual aspect. So versus an Excel document you might export from Shopify telling you your returns data, which I know isn't that quite easily digestible by some teams. So for us, using Style Arcade, we were able to really break down into what our most returned categories and sizing were, and really focus on our 3 top categories, which really has allowed us to kind of focus on these categories and improvement and make some improvements there. So, for example, pants, one of our key categories, I suppose. It's small for us as a business, but an important one. We were really seeing that there was a particular silhouette that kept appearing. And generally, I think if we'd pulled it out of an Excel doc, we never would have known that it was a silhouette, we would have just been like, okay, it's a pant, that's it, slim pant, whatever. But Style Arcade allowed us to see that it was this tapered pant, same silhouette, season after season, that just had such a high return rate. And it was in particular the fringe sizing that was really affecting us. So we've been able to work with our production and design team to, I suppose, update that silhouette or make some changes. And we've been able to roll that out for our seasons to come. So it's really, that I suppose is kind of one of our win cases of how we were able to use that data to really reduce the return frequency in a key silhouette and an important silhouette for the business. So really pleased to see the outcome there.
Love that. I think it's exciting to hear that you're using, or I guess the power of Style Arcade and Refundid in unison and using both platforms. I'm certainly excited to see what Refundid does for you guys, seeing as you've just launched it in February. So keep us in the loop. Brogan, I guess to add to any of Alyssa's comments, are there any other aspects you'd sort of add to that, or any other aspects that retailers can consider in conjunction with your on-site tools when it comes to looking to reduce that return frequency?
Yeah, from a planning perspective, I'd suggest looking or starting with 3 things: your category mix, your supplier mix, and your price mix. I know it might sound very simple, but just being strategic about your assortment planning and investing more in low returning categories is going to give you the ability to really manipulate your overall return rate and move the dial on your return frequency as well. With price points, typically the higher the price point, the higher return rate. That's just going to come naturally with a longer decision-making process long after the checkout. So making sure that you have a healthy mix of price points in the business is going to naturally lead to a healthier return rate as well. And then with suppliers, say if you're a multi-brand retailer and you have one brand that is consistently over-indexing with return rate, really drilling down on that, matching the return reasons to it, whether that be quality and fit, adjusting your buys, and then really working with that brand or supplier to find the issue so then you can take action. Another thing I'd suggest is really taking control of the product that you're putting in front of the customers and being able to take action in season. I can remember a time when I was working in brand and digital, and we had this best selling dress shape that was flying off the shelf, and it was our bestseller consecutively for 3 weeks. And we realized that most of that revenue was coming through our Google channel because Google was prioritizing it because it had a super high click-through rate. What Google couldn't identify was that it was actually being returned at the same velocity as it was being sold due to a fit issue. So no matter how many dresses we sold, the product just kept on coming back in, which was really driving up our return rate for those couple of weeks. And thus driving up our return expenses as well. So as soon as we were able to remove that product from our product feed, return rate dropped immediately. We're able to take action with that dress with the suppliers. And ultimately, a lot of those customers were new. So, removing that problem style for a first-time customer is really, really important. I think if you're running a business with really high paid channel mix, it's a good idea to automate your product feed so you can remove high returning products entirely. Not only is that going to reduce your return rate, but actually improve the first time customer experience, which Style Arcade has the ability to do for you.
Yeah, that's great, Regan. I think that dress example just really proves how close you need to be to the data at all times. It's a great example to show that. I think coming back to expanding return options and return offerings, Jenna, are you sort of seeing retailers embrace this? Are there any sort of assumptions that we're making on the impact that it will have, or any hesitation around it?
Yeah, I think I'll come back to Brogan's example of the dress because I think that's really interesting. But I mean, I'll debunk based on Alyssa's comments and Brogan's. There's this concept which I love to talk about around an easy return process doesn't necessarily equal high return rate. And I think based on, Alyssa's comments around how to expose that, how to make it easier for your customers to actually find out about your return process and make it easy, combined with what Brogan was speaking about around that dresses example and helping to use tools like Style Arcade to understand more about your products and your return data. All of these things in combination is what is going to help impact that return rate. But I think there's this common, myth across the industry of, at times we feel, and it's, it's a fair myth or a concern at times, but, if we make this return process so easy, are we going to increase these return rates? So I think it's a really interesting way to look at it across both the on-site experience and then what happens post-sales to help impact that return rate. But we're also seeing a lot of our retailers use our returns data, similar to what Brogan was mentioning, and Alyssa, flagging frequent returning customers, how to change their experience or their journey, how to offer them a different return option, or potentially change those shoppers' experience with your policy to help ensure that they're finding the right items if they are a new customer or a returning customer, and just understanding that customer behavior, which will ultimately help reduce that return rate.
They're great call outs. I think debunking the myth is important. And I mean, I think the landscape is changing so much that, again, that concept or notion of embracing it rather than shying away from it. And I think, talking about emerging consumer trends and, actively managing our returns and our return options, I think, a focus definitely needs to be on being proactive. Sometimes retailers, as retailers, we're only looking at returns analysis or returns data at a post-seasonal stage rather than, in season trade. So how can we sort of be proactive during this period? How can we use the advanced data to empower teams? And, Alyssa mentioned that sometimes it is hard, you're overwhelmed, there's a lot of data, but trying to sort of, I guess, find that centralized view in a really easy way so that teams can make quick decisions. Alyssa, I guess hearing, firsthand from you, how do your teams sort of keep track of product and sizing performance during an in-season trade period?
Yeah, I think just kind of before I answer that, I suppose we as a business really made returns as a project, a priority. It wasn't just on production and their fit issues. It wasn't just on e-com. It's sort of kind of now been baked into all of our KPIs. So I think that's a really important move that the business made, that we're all responsible at the end of the day, because prior to that, it was finger pointing. Very much so. That was shot incorrectly, or that was styled incorrectly, or the fit wasn't right. So I think what we first did, holding everyone accountable has been a really important change and mindset change. So really, I would recommend doing that. But in regards to your question, where myself and my team, but not only my team, the wider business, we are, again, another super simple, easy change is putting into your trade, Monday trade, a slide or a talking point around returns. So we don't want to hear it. It's inevitable. We know that some of our best sellers might be also high returns, but actually talking about it, keeping the conversation going on a weekly basis, not just looking at the end of the season and being like, oh, we could have made some changes in season. Oh, look at that. So for us, putting it in the trade slide's been really important. We will look at kind of a week on week, how things are trending, season to date as well, how things are trending, whether something's selling really well in store, but maybe getting high returns online. What's the reasoning behind that? Is it based on fabrication? Is it based on the way we've styled it? Because of course that's a little bit harder to determine body size or fit online. So we will look at all of those aspects, and often we will reshoot in season as well. We're shooting every fortnight. So for us, that's a really quick and easy win to often see sort of a turnaround in regards to those items. So I think there's, a couple of quick wins in there that absolutely everyone can jump on board with, and they're working really well for us.
That's great. I think a question's actually just come through, Alyssa, that might be relevant to the topic around reshooting and looking at fits and the link to return rates. A question's just come through. Has anyone seen a reduction in return rates by showing multiple model sizes on site? Is this something that Age has considered or looked into? Have you seen sort of any, I guess, changes in return rates based on any changes you've made as a business?
Yeah, I love that question. So for Age Athletica, we do shoot on 3 models. That's always what's made us different as a brand from when we launched in May a few years back. But we absolutely get a lot of feedback in regards to that. I think what's challenging though to determine fit with athleisure wear is the fabrication's so different. It's stretchy, which again, we don't see loads of returns for because of the fit of that fabrication and the way it's been designed. So we've got a lot more, I suppose, data and imagery to supply the customer with a better understanding of how the item might fit. Traditionally, athleisure wear is worn pretty tight and figure hugging. So like I mentioned, we don't get loads of returns for that as a category overall. I think for us, being able to style it on multiple sized models is really great because customers get an understanding if something is oversized, what it may look like if it's on someone who is a size 8 or someone who's a size 14. So that really helps in that aspect. I suppose from an age point of view, our product is designed quite differently. So a lot of our product is oversized. So that's where often we will find customers will kind of view the product online, go into store, and that's where they'll purchase it. And it's often those products that we are having to reshoot just based on the way we've styled it, or if it's oversized, how we're communicating that to the customer. Is it even just adding the term oversized into the product name? That's actually a quick win that we were facing, that all the feedback coming through was that it was oversized and it wasn't obvious enough online. So yeah, just a couple of things there that you can also improve, or you can use to improve your returns.
It definitely sounds like some of the smaller changes can maybe make, or you can see the big, or make the biggest impact. So yeah, that's super interesting. I think Brogan, you've had some experience with this as well. And how are retailers, I guess, utilizing advanced data available to them during that buying, planning, trading period? I know you sort of mentioned it before, but how are they really gaining those valuable insights and also quickly and efficiently?
Look, hearing Alyssa's insights is music to my ears, because that's exactly what we want to enable brands to do. We really want to help brands use their returns data throughout the whole season, and for the whole team as well, not just the e-commerce team. I think that if you're looking at your returns data in isolation, you're not really allowing it to tell you the full story. So once you start mapping your returns data across other layers of the business and visually as well, it's going to allow you to see the full picture and pick up on those red flags super quickly. I think similar to what Alyssa's saying, during in-season trading, speed and accuracy of returns is really important, reviewing that on a really weekly basis in trade, but really drilling down on pre-season planning and also post-season analysis beyond just a product level is going to really make the biggest difference for brands and retailers. And also knowing the right data points in the business to measure your returns against. Some of my favorite metrics to look at is return rate by size in season. That's really going to highlight any grading issues that you're going to have, instead of those sizes just, you know, going to age stock, getting discount and never actually selling through. If you identify an issue, you can pull the stock, you can retag, resize, whatever you need to do, and then get the product back in the customer's hands at full price. Return rate and return reason by supplier is super important to review, especially before developing another season, and monitoring return rate season on season, particularly for suppliers who you're launching into new categories with. And then keeping an eye on that in season as you're selling as well. Return rate and return reason by e-commerce model, especially combined with conversion rate, is really interesting to look at. It's going to indicate the models that are accurately representing your clothing, similar to just what Alyssa said. You know, you can measure all of that, which is incredible. And then that can inform casting decisions and whether you need to reshoot moving forward. But really, it's about making your returns data work harder for you. After all, I really think returns data and returns reasons and, return rate is the single most important metric for mitigating product risk for future collections, as it's direct feedback from your customers. So I love it when brands are using returns as an opportunity to get really, really close to their customer and their product. Giving the whole business access to returns, just like Alyssa said, everyone's responsible, everyone plays their part, is super important. We're pulling in data from, platforms like Refundid and Loop. And when you look at that alongside your sales, your stock, reviews, conversion, it's really going to make sure that any product decisions moving forward have the full context and is really telling you the full story.
Great insights. Great sort of summary, I guess, of how you can really utilize the data you have. And with all our platform, all the technology platforms out there, integrations galore. I think, it's important to sort of pick the right data points that you need, in season, pre-season, and then post-season as well. So I guess, we've talked about, when we talk about returns, it's not just the initial sale. We want to ensure that the whole purchase experience is just as remarkable as that initial sale. So, there's this, as I just mentioned, there's technologies out there like Refundid and instant refunds that can increase that conversion and repurchasing behavior. But I think Jenna's, you're probably the best person for insights on this topic. What elements do you think or have you seen that really make up an amazing post-purchase experience?
Yeah, I think I'll probably come back to that point we spoke about right at the beginning, where 70% of your customers are still going to opt for a refund. And so when you think about that from a business perspective, everyone spent a lot of money. There's acquisition costs that are continuously increasing. And so you spend all this money acquiring these customers that inevitably, as we've discussed over the past, couple of minutes, there are customers who will refund and make a return from your business. So I think it really starts with understanding from the customer's experience in that post-purchase mindset that that's actually the last relationship that you have with that customer. So yes, it was previously, it was delivery and there was customer expectations around that speed, but that's also now shifted to the return experience, which really is that lasting relationship. And so if you think about the customer, they've just purchased something from your brand, from your store, it hasn't worked out, it's not what they thought, they might not be able to wear it to that event. And so how do you now meet them and turn that experience that might have been negative into something that is positive? And so what we see is, instant refunds and a seamless overall returns experience is definitely, a first step and a great way to help provide that customer with that great experience, with that confidence to drive that repurchase. But there's also a number of things that you can do and that we help our retailers with almost along the way in that returns experience. So things like giving customers the option to combine shipping labels, a really tactical, small feature that actually drives a lot of value. So if you think about a customer that might need to lodge 2 returns or 2 different items at 2 different times, being able to help them save the cost on that return label if you're not offering free returns, or similarly for your business if you are helping reduce some of those costs from an operational standpoint, and what that does from a surprise and delight to that customer along that returns experience. And then fast forwarding through to the final step of that process where you're able to use that refund lodgement moment to drive a repurchase. So using things like Refundid's product recommendations. So how do you present them? We've spoken a lot about data. How do you use data to present those customers with the best possible item that they might want to repurchase if it's a same product, different size, and help capture that moment when you know those customers are still in a mindset to buy, they're still on your site. And then that's ultimately what can drive your next step in terms of how you communicate to those customers through email or through your other communication tools, knowing that they've just refunded, and how do you continuously add value and drive that customer back to your site. So I think all of these things along the way is what ultimately helps our retailers drive that increase in the revenue that they retain. So kind of going back to the beginning of our conversation around that necessary evil, and refunds and returns are always looked at as this leaky bucket. We work with our retailers to actually help them retain that revenue and turn those customers who are refunding actually into a repurchase. And so we see some incredible results of, over a 50% increase in the revenue that you will retain by actually offering that refunded seamless experience. So I guess I might actually also pass to Alyssa, because I know we've recently partnered, but I know you've also referenced your returns project. I know it's been a huge part of your business, and I love that you're making it a project and a priority for everyone across the team. What are some of the strategies that you've seen work or that have moved the needle for the Age business?
I mean, yes, we've been talking for over a year now. So, finally being able to get Refundid off the ground and actually taking the business on a journey of, like you mentioned earlier, offering a seamless return policy doesn't necessarily mean more returns. And I know you even kind of brought me on that journey as well, because I was, not going to lie, really hesitant. I suppose in the e-com space have always been kind of not trained, but understood give free returns and you'll have 1,000 more returns than normal. So really, for me, once I was understanding what that post-purchase experience was, like we've spoken, returns aren't going anywhere. So really your best bet is creating that smooth and efficient return process, which ultimately enhances satisfaction and customer loyalty. I, as a customer, firsthand experienced this, and I think that was kind of my total shift. I was going back and forth with the business trying to figure out how to make a return, and I was like, I'm an e-com, this shouldn't be that hard. I don't understand. I do this for a living. I just couldn't get my head around it. And that's when it kind of the alarm bell or the light bulb moment happened in my head. And I was like, God, I would never come back and shop with this business again, because it's been so hard. I just don't have time to be going back and forth trying to figure out this situation. And look, as a business, we know we've got lots of room for improvement in regards to our return process, and that's why it has been such a big project for us. We really kind of analyzed what feedback we were getting from our customers, what people were asking for, and the size of the business. We've got 3 brands now, so it does take longer for not only our warehouse to receive the returns back in, but also our customer service team to kind of process that. So being able to offer instant refunds really kind of not only takes the pressure off our internal team, but also off customers. And we're seeing already, it's been just over a month since we signed on with Refundid, and like I said, already seeing really great results of customers who have opted for an instant refund, and seeing really great results just within the first 24 hours, seeing those customers repurchasing back on site for us, which is really pleasing to see. So I'm really keen to see the results as the months go on. But what we've also been looking at doing is we've got a huge network of stores. We've got over 40 stores within Australia, and therefore we need to lean on them. We have done quite a bit of integration work as well in regards to customers being able to lodge a return online and return their item in store. Zara is amazing at that, being able to buy something online, returning it in store and getting your money back on the spot. So that was kind of my dream and what we've been able to actually integrate and get live for our online and store network, which has been incredible, because we've been working really closely with our store team to also being able to kind of acquire the information and the feedback customers are giving us. What was the overall experience? Was it online? Was it based on the imagery? Was it based on the styling? Was it the product? And that's a lot of that information. It's harder for us to, I suppose, capture online. So customers feeding it back to our store network and kind of closing the loop in the communication and giving that back to us at HQ, so we can kind of update our policies and update what we're doing on site. And it's really kind of brought the whole network of the business a lot closer together in regards to communicating.
Thanks, Alyssa. I think, and thank you for being so sort of transparent on your journey. It's interesting to hear that, and that's why we love having these conversations to sort of push through the weeds and get to what's working for brands and what isn't.
Oh yeah, I'll be the first to say, like, we know as a business, it was an issue for us. We knew it. We were trying to hide behind it. No one wanted to, like I said, everyone was finger pointing, and it's so easy to do in businesses. I worked in so many businesses where it's the same thing, but it just came down to, we needed to acknowledge that it was a problem and how could we fix it. And we've been able to, have these incredible partners who have been able to work through a lot of the issues with us. And they, like Jenna, for example, I remember I was like, okay, this is our issue. And you're like, oh, okay, let's figure it out together. Because I think a really important part is leaning on the partners, because they're speaking to loads of people in the industry, and they're the ones who at the end of the day are going to support you and be able to work through your issues. And it's been such a win for us. And we know, like, we're still on the road to what great looks like. And I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect, because I think customer expectations are forever evolving and changing. But like I said, just being able to lean on our partners to make these improvements and changes has been such a win.
Love it. Love it. Sounds like a fun journey. So we'll jump into some questions now. I'll actually fire away with the first question we have here. Feel free to put any in the question box below. We'll answer them after the webinar as well, if we don't have time. So first question here is an interesting one. We've got, there've been talk about retailers charging for excessive returns. And I think this is probably a good question directed to you, Jenna. Do you think it is currently the case, waiting for the first retailer to actually pull the trigger on this, charging for excessive returns, and that others will follow, or will charging for returns be bad customer experience, essentially? What are your sort of thoughts on that, Jenna?
Great question. I think this kind of comes back to a lot of the points that we've been speaking about today. Ultimately, I think there's a couple of factors. What is your type of business model? Like, you've got businesses like a Revolve who are encouraging this. You've got businesses who are potentially newer to market, have, Alyssa was mentioning activewear, might sit outside of this category, but there are other categories that are harder to fit, that have more specific shapes and size and fit. And then I think you also have customer. So there's been a lot of reports around different types of, our millennials and Gen Z and all those favorite customer groups we like to talk about, have different buying behaviors and what they're doing in terms of hauls and bracketing. So I actually think it's about looking at what is your business trying to achieve, because ultimately, if that might be a positive for your business, do I think that might happen? I think, yes, it probably would rely on, one retailer like taking that move, understanding their business well enough to make that move and that decision. But I actually think it'll land closer to just being creative with those policies. So, I've kind of heard chatter, and I know there's been conversations around what does it look like for the first return being free, so that you're servicing your first customer, but then once you have an understanding of the brand and the fit, then what does that look like? So I think the pendulum won't swing, at least right now, completely that way. Ultimately, everyone, is still trying to capture customers and provide that experience. But I do think that there will be some shifts to getting creative in order to help service the customers who are refunding and returning, but also maintaining profitability.
Thanks, Jenna. I'll quickly fire another question your way, which is specifically around Refundid. Does Refundid only work for AU customers, and is it available for brands who are not from Australia?
So we can power brands globally with different return options. So we have instant refunds currently in Australia, in the US, and also looking at expanding that globally. And we can also support customers with their returns experience globally as well. So it's really around, reaching out to our team, helping us understand your different business and different markets. And then ultimately we will help put forward a return partnership that makes sense for different countries and different customers for your business.
Great, good to hear that Refundit is possible for global, we'll say. We've got another question here. This is amazing. A lot of questions coming through. Becky mentioned integration between systems is important. Is there an integration between Refundit and Style Arcade systems? I think Brogan and I were talking about this earlier. And Brogan alluded to it before, that we do have an integration in terms of connecting the two systems, so we can pull in Refundit data into our platform, which is really exciting. This is sort of, fresh. This is today we've launched it. So yes, please feel free to inquire with either Refundit or Style Arcade if you're a mutual customer of ours, and we can get you set up and connected. And then we've got one last question. We did touch on this. So I guess if anyone's got sort of anything to add, what kind of post-sale experiences are you providing to reduce your return rate and increase repurchase and retention? So I think, Jenna, you sort of covered off a lot of those points around retention and that post-purchase journey. Alyssa, you sort of mentioned some of your goals this year. Is there anything else that, Alyssa, that you've found to be quite powerful in terms of that communication, specifically post-purchase? So whether it's, product recommendations, things like that, have you seen any impact in that space?
Yeah, I think one thing that we are we're live for AA, for Age Athletica, but looking to go live soon is reviews. I think people look at reviews from an aspect of sometimes they can be a bit down and dirty because they're on like all the appliance websites, and like they're kind of I know even myself, I was like, oof, don't know if it's right for us as a brand, but I think it's such an important and huge opportunity from a conversion driver as well. I myself am a big, I'm all over reviews. So I think it's how you display it on your site, how you're asking the customer to provide that information. I think, you that being able to utilize them, the customer feedback in regards to the overall journey on site, the product, you can just obtain so much information and actually kind of squish a lot of assumptions that are happening in the business. So I think that's a really, key one that I'm keen to roll out for Age.
Love it. Love it. I will fire this question. Actually, this one can go to myself. Does Style Arcade have any plans to integrate with Shopify soon? We do integrate with Shopify. So if there's any specifics around what you're after, please feel free to contact us after the webinar and we can discuss your requirements. And then I think I'll do one last one. Which one will I do? So question for Alyssa. I loved your point around making everyone accountable for returns. Any tips on your experience of how to get everyone on board with ownership of returns and that conversation?
Yeah, look, it didn't go down that well to begin with. I think, truthfully, no one wanted to, I guess, get the brunt of the issue. It just took really a couple of people to be like, I'm going to take ownership. Let's take you on the journey. Let's do it together. Let's hold hands, I suppose, and kind of, just work through it. And we had a working group weekly, and we all came with our issues, and it wasn't a fun conversation to be like, this is where the issues are coming from. But once everyone was in the group and it kind of no finger pointing was happening, we were all saying like, production, I'm going to support you, or retail, I'm going to support you. I think it just naturally progressed into more of a positive outcome, and being able to update the business on a weekly point of view saying, okay, this is the issue that we've highlighted. These are the steps that we're working towards to overcome it. And this is, I suppose, the progress that we've achieved so far. And the business just wanted us to really be transparent and honest on the journey. And like I said, there were some ugly stats that we came across and some wow moments, but we're all here to really make it to improve the return outcome and what we were seeing. And I think it was really great kind of after those few weeks when we came back and we were like, okay, what have we achieved? And there were small wins, but they were really impactful at the end of the day. And we were able to celebrate it as a wider business and continue to work towards it. So it really just does take one person, I think, to be like, guys, come on, let's work through this together. I've got your back if you've got mine, and let's fix it.
Hard conversations are always the best, aren't they?
Absolutely. And now we look back and we laugh about it and we're like, oh, that's bad.
Love it. So sorry, we've gone a bit over time, but one last chance to download the State of Retail Returns ebook, which is a really great read. QR code on the screen there. And I guess super quickly to summarize, Brogan, I'll quickly fire to you. Super quick summary of Style Arcade.
Style Arcade. So we're an end-to-end fashion solution. We're built specifically for brands and retailers. And we really master all your product data, bringing it all together in one source of truth, so you can move the needle on revenue, profit, and returns, and ultimately make better product decisions across the business.
Amazing. And over to you, Jenna. Recap on Refundid.
We are on a mission to turn a negative experience into a positive one. Refundid powers retailers globally with their entire returns experience, obviously focusing in there as well on the benefit and the impact of the instant refund. So if any part of this conversation has made you think about a returns project and how that can become, something that you focus on, please get in touch with our team today, and would love to chat about how we can help turn those refunds into retention for your business.
Thanks, Jenna. And thank you so much, everyone. We hope you got something out of today. I think the conversation has been great and been really open and transparent. We've discussed so many topics. And again, if you would like to contact Alyssa or us at Style Arcade and Refundid, please feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you so much again, and bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, panelists.
Bye.